Rick Sanchez always claims to be the smartest man in the universe with his groundbreaking inventions. However, throughout his journey traveling across dimensions, he has often had to pay the price for his own foolish actions. Right now, let's take a look at the times when even a genius like Rick had to face the consequences of his own mess-ups. Number 1, Rick was trapped in the Matrix by Morty. Never underestimate the pettiness of Rick Sanchez, as he can turn a lost phone charger into a full-blown human catastrophe. In the episode Summer of All Fear, Rick decides to throw Morty and Summer into a simulated Matrix to teach his two grandkids a lesson for forgetting to return his charger. However, Rick falls asleep, leaving the kids to endure 17 years of a blood and tears-filled life inside that Matrix.
We're ready to launch the device.
Do we have eyes on my brother?
No, ma'am.
Then we're not ready.
When Rick came, he was no longer facing the usual naive and timid Morty. The kid had now turned into a battle-hardened veteran with a fractured psyche, ready to tear everything apart. Morty's revenge against Rick was truly about to begin. Using a trick he had learned during the years of being imprisoned by Rick, Morty successfully trapped Rick in a reverse matrix, forcing him to experience the feeling of being controlled and treated like a lab rat. Watching Rick, the smartest being in the universe, struggle to find a way out of his grandson's trap, we can finally see how he had pushed himself into such a humiliating situation. The price Rick had to pay here wasn't just time, but utter chaos, as Morty took the wheel of the death race car and plowed straight into the national power grid, nearly turning North America into a wasteland. Rick was forced to jump in and clean up the mess, preventing a Chernobyl-style nuclear explosion, just to fix the selfish mistake he made in the first place.
PTSD! Thank you for your service. Oh my God! You saved us from
the worst meltdown in American history? Yeah.
Even though he used the memory wiping machine to quote-unquote reset everything afterward, Morty's blank stare at the bizarre tattoo on the kid's arm stood as proof of Rick's catastrophic failure. Number 2, Rick faced the consequences and had to leave his family behind. In the universe of Rick and Morty, the line between genius and planet-destroying maniac is sometimes as thin as the cheap love potion. The episode Rick Potion number 9 is not just a biological disaster, but also a testament to Rick's cowardice in facing his own failures. Everything started with Rick's laziness. Instead of teaching Morty how to deal with his emotions, Rick tossed him a vial of hamster DNA serum to make Jessica fall in love with him. However, Rick's inventions always come with unforeseen consequences, and this time was a textbook example of that. Due to a small mishap involving the flu virus, the entire world quickly turned into bloodthirsty praying mantis monsters. And then into disgusting, slimy piles of flesh that Rick called Cronenbergs. An attempt to fix things by mixing DNA from dinosaurs to cacti only made everything worse, turning the blue planet into an irredeemable hell on Earth. The truly terrifying thing here isn't that Rick messed up, but that he doesn't feel the slightest bit guilty about the disasters he's caused. Rick chose to abandon Beth, Jerry, and Summer in the ruined Cronenberg world, where they're forced to fight for survival among hordes of monsters, while he and Morty escaped to another dimension. The final scene, where Rick and Morty have to dig graves to bury their own corpses in the new dimension to take over their counterparts' lives, is the ultimate culmination of that tragedy. Number 3, Rick faces the consequences as his prank unintentionally causes Tony to be gone forever. Rick Sanchez, the self-proclaimed Lord of Privacy, dedicated an entire paradise planet solely to serve his personal bathroom needs. But when Tony, a mild-mannered alien office worker, dared to sneakily use that secret toilet, Rick turned his life into a cruel joke.
Oh, so you like being alive? So why the f*** are you back here?
The most bitter consequence for Rick wasn't accepting failure, but realizing he had just lost the only friend who truly understood him. Rick had created a simulated paradise to imprison Tony, only to humiliate and drive him away with the challenge.
Chance. Goodbye forever. If you touch my toilet again, you die.
And then when Rick brought a sarcastic peace offering, a box of laxative chili peppers, to find Tony, he was hit with a devastating revelation. Tony had died in an accident while trying to live life to the fullest, just as Rick had told him. The moment Rick sat alone on the golden toilet amidst the pouring rain was the pinnacle of his reckoning. He had set up a high-tech projection system to humiliate anyone who dared sin on it, initially intending to mock Tony. But now, thousands of holographic projections of Rick were cheering, clapping, and crowning him the king of shit. The mocking laughter echoed across the planet, rubbing salt into the late regret of a genius too arrogant to admit he needed a friend. Rick had won the battle for control of the toilet, but he had lost completely in the game of human connection. It was an emptiness that not even $8 billion or cloning technology could ever fill. Number 4, Rick was abandoned by Unity. Rick's reunion with Unity, a hive mind ideological entity capable of controlling millions of hosts in Season 2, Episode 3, made him believe he had found the perfect haven for his life. The two plunged into a hedonistic, debauched love affair, turning an entire planet into a dance floor of drugs and depraved pleasures. Rick smugly basked in the absolute submission, ignoring Morty and Summer's warnings about the toxicity he was spreading to them.
You and Unity are like leggings and mid-calf boots. You think you're great together, but you're just bringing out the worst in each other.
Under Rick's influence, Unity realizes that even an entity capable of consuming entire planets cannot withstand the negativity emanating from Rick. The goodbye letters are the clearest proof of this truth. Rick is an assimilator even more terrifying than a hive mind. Rick doesn't need to control minds, he just needs to exist to turn those around him into corrupted, broken versions of himself. The moment Rick trudged back to the garage, quietly building a suicide machine only to collapse from exhaustion before the laser could fire, was the most pathetic image of a cosmic genius. It was the first time Rick was forced to face the truth. He is the poison in every one of his relationships. Number 5, Rick was looked down on by Jerry. In Season 3, Episode 5, to appease Morty, Rick took Jerry to an immortal resort where he relentlessly mocked his son-in-law as a predator of pity, a pathetic creature surviving by making others feel sorry for him. But karma spares no one, not even the smartest man in the universe. Karma hit right after that at a space checkpoint when Rick's implants triggered a terrorist alarm. The result? He got injected with a dose of synaptic dampener, a neural inhibitor that turned his genius brain into a mushy pile of clueless goo. In the blink of an eye, Rick transformed into a dim-witted child with vacant eyes and completely harmless. This was Jerry Smith's most glorious and also most disgraceful moment. Instead of stepping in to help, Jerry fully exploited the opportunity to belittle and bully Rick. Jerry scolded, mocked, and looked at Rick with the same superior gaze he once reserved for him. The sight of Rick Sanchez, the most powerful being, fumbling to obey and endure humiliation from someone he considered trash was like a cold slap to Rick's pride. Even though the soul-merging experience in the black hole later helped Rick regain clarity to finish off his enemy, the truth remains unchanged. Rick had an utterly humiliating journey where he had to taste the bitterness of being trampled on by someone far weaker than him. Number 6, Rick got cocky and got stabbed in the back on the planet Purge. Everything started with Morty's hypocritical whining, prompting Rick to play the savior on a planet drowning in blood and violence. He landed, guns blazing like an action movie hero, and rescued the girl Arthricia onto his ship.
Could we take Arthricia up in the ship and, just wait out the purge?
Oh, Morty, how could I refuse after all you've done to blackmail me?
But Rick forgot one golden rule. In a world where killing is legal, kindness is a luxury, and a dangerous one at that. The moment Rick let his guard down to take her home, karma hit back as fast as his insults to Jerry. Arthricia suddenly betrayed him, took Rick down, snatched the portal gun, and fired a deadly shot at its owner before stealing the cruiser and making her escape.
Come back! You gotta come back! Change your mind!
This slap to his pride hurt more than the bullet wounds on his body. Rick Sanchez lay sprawled on the filthy floor, blood streaming down while the backstabber sped away on his own ship. Adding insult to the injury, to survive that night, Rick had to both patch up his wounds with crude chemicals and fend off murderous attackers using a spoon. The only thing Morty managed to toss to him. It was the most pathetic image of a genius, betrayed by a rare moment of compassion and forced to fight for his life with a piece of cutlery. A harsh lesson for Rick indeed. Never try to be the good guy on a planet where even old grannies might pull a knife and send you to your grave.
I take no part in the festival.
Number 7, Rick was betrayed by the Council of Ricks. Rick Sanchez was the one who laid the foundation for the idea of building a miniature society. A place where the Ricks are the leaders protecting each other from enemies, while the Mortys are treated like slaves. What do you think about the fact that someone who despises government to the core ends up being the chief architect of the Citadel, the most bureaucratic and pretentious city in the multiverse? After years of massacring countless versions of Rick in search of his nemesis, Rick C-137 agreed to a truce and helped build the Citadel, all for the sake of peace. But, ironically, when 27 Ricks were murdered at the Citadel needed a quick scapegoat, Rick C-137 was the first name to be called out. His efforts in building the Citadel were wiped out in a sham trial where Rick was dragged away and sentenced by the very clones he had always despised.
Earth Rick C-137, the Council of Rick sentences you to the machine of unspeakable doom.
It's even more bitter when Rick realizes he's been played by another version of himself who is being manipulated like a puppet by a bratty Morty, a Morty that all the Ricks only see as a disposable commodity or a tool to block brainwaves. In the end, Rick C-137 manages to clear his name, but the reward he gets from the council is nothing more than a free replacement Morty voucher in case the current Morty expires. It's a brutal slap to Rick's ego, especially since he was the one who laid the groundwork for a bureaucratic society so cold that it reduces all emotional values to soulless statistics. Number 8, Rick gets his comeuppance for betraying Mr. Nimbus. In Rick Sanchez's world, every peace treaty is essentially just a charade waiting to end with a calculated backstab. Right from the start, Rick broke the ancient pact with Nimbus just because he landed his spaceship in the ocean. A bit of a snub, and Rick acted as if rules were only meant for people less intelligent than him.
You have desecrated the sacred treaty betwixt land and sea!
While pretending to host a diplomatic dinner to reconcile and renew the treaty with the Ocean King, Rick secretly sent Summer diving into the Mariana Trench to steal the conch shell, the source of Nimbus's power. This is Rick's typical style, pulling off a heist while making a scene, taking advantage of the enemy's unguarded moment to completely take them down.
What was that? Another scheme of yours, Richard? I know you're planning something.
It's nothing. Will you excuse me, please?
However, karma hit Rick in the most ironic way. When Rick and Morty were trapped in the Narnia dimension and nearly lost their lives to an army of robots, it was Mr. Nimbus, the guy Rick always scorned as a perverted merman, who saved their lives with a majestic tidal wave. Just as Rick felt a rare pang of remorse and started to reconcile with Nimbus, Summer suddenly showed up with a conch shell in hand, exposing Rick's entire sneaky scheme. There was no forgiveness at all. Rick took a brutal beating from Nimbus right in his own living room. Even more humiliating than being defeated by a guy in swim trunks was the fact that Rick was handcuffed and dragged away by the police, who were essentially Nimbus's puppets. The greatest genius in the multiverse was ultimately left sprawled on the floor, stripped of his weapons and dignity, watching his family descend into chaos while his nemesis stood tall as the real hero.
Yes, he would.
Number 9, Rick regretted realizing he was a lousy father. Rick Sanchez always claims to be a father who respects his children's freedom and choices. Sounds noble, right? But deep down, Rick is just dodging the responsibilities of being a dad. The episode Star-Mort Rick Turn of the Jerry isn't just a Star Wars parody packed with guns and action. It's also the moment Rick realizes he's about to face the harshest punishment of all: being rejected by his own family.
Step back! You're not killing him till we kick his ass, Birdperson.
The fatal blow didn't come from a laser gun, it came from a memory container. Rick created a clone of Beth because he was too much of a coward to make a choice for his daughter. Rick called the random swapping of the two versions of Beth scientific objectivity. But in reality, it was the cowardly act of a father avoiding the responsibility of facing his child's emotion. He turned his daughter's identity into a game of chance, then erased his own memory so he wouldn't have to deal with the guilt. Rick was excited about it and even planned to use the truth about real Beth, fake Beth, to take control of the game, throwing the whole family into chaos as usual. But instead of yelling and screaming, the Smith family was now too exhausted with Rick's manipulative antics and chose to ignore him. The two Beths, Jerry, and the kids accepted the reality of having two moms and turned their backs, walking away, leaving Rick all alone with a soulless memory projector.
Not really, Rick. We have two badass moms now. It's kind of a win-win.
Yeah, Grandpa Rick, don't drag us into your bullshit just because you're losing control.
The final moment when Rick sat alone in the cold garage, rewatching the footage of himself turning his back on his two daughters in the test tubes, he had officially hit rock bottom. Looking at Birdperson, now Phoenix Person, full of hatred and a family that was happy without needing him, Rick bitterly realized one thing. Here, he was nothing more than a lousy father, a piece of crap erased from the lives of those he loved the most. Number 10, Rick turned himself into a pickle.
Pickle Rick!
That self-satisfied scream wasn't a groundbreaking scientific achievement, but the beginning of a karmic disaster that went straight downhill. To dodge a boring family therapy session, Rick Sanchez turned himself into a pickle. For Rick, it was the perfect joke, proving his superiority while escaping something he deemed utterly pointless.
Morty, I assure you, I would never find a way to get out of family therapy.
The consequences hit immediately when Beth took the serum and left, abandoning Rick lying helplessly on the table like a useless side dish. From a space overlord, Rick was knocked into the sewer by a cat, facing imminent death amidst the foul-smelling wastewater. A place where intellect was no longer the ultimate weapon, but survival instincts determined everything. In the form of a tiny pickle, Rick had to bite off the head of a cockroach, using his tongue to stimulate the insect's nervous system to move. The image of Rick assembling a grotesque armor from rat carcasses and trash to survive not only showcased his genius, but also exposed the utter misery of someone who would rather become a sewer monster than confront his own emotions.
Pickle Rick!
After slaughtering an entire mafia army and engaging in a life-or-death battle with the assassin Jaguar, Rick finally drags his battered, pickle-bruised body to Dr. Wong's clinic. Here, Rick is exposed as a coward, someone who dismisses therapy as trivial simply because he's afraid to face the work of maintaining family relationships. In a state of physical wreckage, Rick is forced to beg Beth for the serum to turn back into a human, marking one of the rare moments where Rick has to plead with someone. Number 11, Birdperson lost faith in Rick. You may hold the secrets of the entire universe, but can you keep the one friend who truly cares about you? In the episode Rick-ternal Friendshine of the Spotless Mort, Rick risked his life to dive deep into Birdperson's subconscious. He was willing to strip down, willing to dig through the most painful memories to bring his best friend from the dead. Sounds like a selfless hero putting it all on the line for a buddy, right? But in reality, it was a manipulative, selfish psychological play. Rick knew Birdperson had a daughter who was being held captive, but he kept that information under wraps. He only played that card at the last minute, not because he wanted Birdperson to be happy, but because it was the only way to push Birdperson to find the will to live and stick around with him. The moment Birdperson wakes up, instead of a grateful hug, Birdperson gives Rick a look of utter contempt. He realizes that even in the act of saving his life, Rick remains a master manipulator, treating emotions like a zero-sum game. Rick's decision to reveal the truth about the child only when necessary to salvage the situation exposes his true nature. A man so terrified of loneliness that he's willing to rob his friend of fatherhood just to keep him as an accessory for his adventures. The price to pay for this betrayal of trust is Birdperson coldly walking away to find his child, leaving Rick standing all alone in the garage amidst a pile of broken parts. An ending full of emptiness where Rick is left with nothing but talking to the AI system he built after being turned away by someone he once trusted.
Disloyalty acknowledged.
Nah, I get it.
In the end, when looking back at all the consequences Rick Sanchez had to face, the scariest thing isn't how many times Rick almost died or how many planets he destroyed, but the way he always managed to survive those situations. He escaped every physical punishment, every cosmic sentence, but the real price Rick had to pay was the trust that gradually faded away from his loved ones.